And a very good morning to you, Grenada. Thank you very much for joining us for today's edition of Good Day, Grenada. It's a Thursday morning, and nice to see you folks out there. We are going to begin this morning by taking a look at the latest on Tropical Storm Isaac. Whew. Looks like we have been spared. You're going to see that even though this thing has been coming directly to the west, it has finally started to take a little turn away from us to the right. We'll get to that in just a wee bit. We're also going to take a look at some interesting comments that were made about the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, by a local attorney. I was scanning through the New Today newspaper a couple of days ago and came across this. Very interesting thoughts by Mr. Edwin, and I thought I would share those with you this morning. Then we've also got the national report from the Government Information Service and Alan at Large. We're going to get this guy on this morning. But first, at 5 o'clock this morning, the center of Tropical Storm Isaac was located near latitude 15.4 degrees north, longitude 59.7 west. That's about 105 miles east of Dominica. Isaac is moving towards the west near 17 miles an hour, and this general motion is forecast to continue for the next several days. On the forecast track, Isaac is forecast to move across the central Lesser Antilles and into the eastern Caribbean Sea later on today, and then move across the eastern and central Caribbean Sea through the weekend. Note, Grenada is not under any storm or hurricane watch or warning. Ain't that great news? Ain't that great news? Now, outspoken attorney at law Jerry Edwin has described the launch of the promotional activities for the November 6th referendum on the Caribbean Court of Justice as nothing short of a political rally. You may recall that the CCJ and other justice-related matters bill was among 7 which failed to receive 2/3 support in the November 2016 referendum. Grenadians voted against the CCJ by a margin of 9,492 in favor, with 12,434 against. In an earlier interview with the New Today, Edwin stated that while he welcomes the notion of an independent nation and free people having their own final court of appeal in this 21st century, he has heavily criticized Prime Minister Mitchell for saying that he would use his political capital to secure votes for the Caribbean Court of Justice. He believes that the rejection of the idea of the CCJ being our final appellate court in the 2016 referendum actually reflects the public's belief that institutions have failed them. They feel like the institutions do not adequately represent their interests. And it's a similar case with the courts. Allow me to quote Mr. Edwin here. There is a sense that our institutions are not supporting our interests. And here you come now with a court, and you as a politician are coming out and telling us that we should forget about England and support a court that you tell us, even though you have failed us in everything else that you are doing. Mr. Edwin speaking there, okay? He went on to say the following: the mistake that the supporters of the CCJ are making is that they are ignoring the very reason why people reject the CCJ. It is due to a fear of political interference. I'm saying that the involvement of our Prime Minister is going to jeopardize the result of the referendum. In other words, Keith Mitchell is saying, I have won 2 elections unanimously, and I'm going now to use my own personal political capital and come to the Grenadian people and tell them why we should adopt the CCJ. I think that is improper. Mr. Edwin believes that Grenadians need to hear from other countries who have joined the court about their experiences and whether or not they are satisfied. He saw the recent launch at the Trade Center as a political rally in which only the green and yellow flags were missing. But people, he said, were actually bussed in to fill the seats at the Trade Center. Edwin says that to believe that there is no political interference in any court is naive. One should say, or one could say, that at least the Americans are more honest about it. They tell you up front. But he didn't end there. He added that, he also took issue with the theme chosen for the official launch of the CCJ activities, that the adoption of the CCJ was necessary to rid Grenada of its colonial master. He said that to believe that Grenada does not have a plethora of colonial-era laws is to ignore the fact that we have on our law books some of the worst colonial-era laws. He also said that our Parliament, without doubt of successful contradiction, has not one single anti-colonial advocate. Not one. After all, he said, it is well known that we permit punishment of the poor by a colonial-era law, that is, flogging with a whip. I was embarrassed for our Governor General that she had to sit through the lie, the charade, that the adoption of the CCJ is somehow the step to rid Grenada of colonialism. The outspoken attorney also pointed out that the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate are well known to wear with pride a symbol of colonialism every day that the Parliament sits. Maybe this is a moment in time when they will rid themselves of the foolish wig that bears the stamp of colonialism all over it. And the campaign for CCJ is their rallying call to some pride and independent thinking. Attorney Edwin also pointed to the agreement establishing the CCJ, which states that the salary of the president of the court, as well as the benefits to the judges, is determined by the heads of government of the CARICOM community. As we all know, the common and popular maxim, he who pays the piper calls the tune. In the course of human affairs, it would be naive to believe that judges are somehow completely removed from political considerations. There is no judge, no court, anywhere in the world that is not subjected to some political influence, either in the selection of judges or in the outcome of their decisions. According to Mr. Edwin, while he does not believe that the decisions made by the judges of the CCJ or the judges of the Privy Council are susceptible to political influence, the selection of these judges clearly has the handprint of political leaders, and to think otherwise is naive. The American-trained lawyer who supports ascension to the CCJ, in theory, said he is not satisfied that the specter of political influence on the CCJ has been fully satisfied to our people in Jamaica, Trinidad, and Grenada. What we have in common is that we have not accepted the court because there has to be a constitutional reform process. Noting that the countries who have joined the court did not need to go through a constitutional reform. It might be useful for members of the bar, not the politicians and political leaders, to tell us about the CCJ. I think Mia Mottley is a great politician, fantastic lawyer, and a great leader. But she is a politician. And the last thing we need is a politician telling us about the CCJ, when what we are concerned about in Grenada is the specter of political influence of the court. Right message, wrong person. That's my view, he declared. Oh, yes, my dear friends. Oh, yes, my dear. That's some stuff we pulled out of the New Today from Jerry Edwin. And you can check it out if you get a copy of last week's edition of the New Today. My dear friends, it's now 12 minutes after the hour. Take a little break here, and then we'll be back in just a wee bit with the National Report.
So, babe, Alberto and Beryl come and gone, right? So that means we still have Chris, Debbie, Florence, Michael, Patty, Sarah.
From the looks of it, Tony and Valerie might be coming as well. So we need to pick up some extra hurricane supplies.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply departments and the Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's is an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan. Get discounts when using credit and debit cards.
Easy living should be convenient. With Grenneck, it is. Dial 237 for any Grenneck department, or for customer service, streetlight outages, or if it's unsafe to trim a tree near a power line. For streetlights and service issues, please note the pole number. From just about anywhere, you can also check your bill balance and other account information. Just keep your Grenneck access number handy. Dial 237 for Grenneck. It's that easy. Grenneck, energizing our Grenada.
Thinking of owning your own home? Take it from a dream to reality. Yes, you can make it yours. Join Co-op Bank for its Make It Yours Property Expo from Friday, July 20th to Saturday, July 21st at the Grenada Trade Center. This year, we are breaking new grounds and going green. Learn tips on making your building climate change resistant, ways to go green, and so much more. Register by visiting www.grenadacoopbank.com or any Co-op Bank retail banking unit.
Grenada Market has now introduced the prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zebrapick, Nutmed, Wabande and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
CARICOM officials say regulating the single ICT space is crucial. Details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Wednesday, September 12, I am Abigail McIntyre. Regulating in a single ICT space was the main agenda item of a presentation to Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell by a CARICOM delegation on Wednesday. The single ICT space was brought into being because of a perceived fragmentation on the coordination of regional ICT initiatives. To tackle the problem, heads of government mandated the formation of an ICT cluster. CARICOM's Deputy Program Manager, ICT for Development, Ms. Jennifer Britton's presentation zeroed in on areas such as the issues driving the necessity for the single ICT space, as well as some disruptors, and the CARICOM response being developed by 2022. Heads have given them a 5-year deadline for the development of the single ICT space. She says they are progressing well in light of the fact that approval for this only came last year.
But there are other things that we have to do in the single space which require thinking, negotiation, and some of them are as simple perhaps as looking at our licensing structure and how we deal with it at a regional level, if that gives us better value for the opportunity in whichever construct we choose. But then there are other complex ones which will require complex in the sense of will and ability for us to agree as a region that, for example, we will sell our spectrum space together on auction at the same time. Seems easy, but is not necessarily an easy decision. We also will have interconnection agreements which need to be examined country by country to see how we can best elevate them to the regional perspective in the single ICT space, and that will take some thinking. One of the issues which may also be either complex or simple is what and how do you regulate in a single ICT space.
Ms. Britton says that they also need to get young regional innovators on board who must be able to see some returns for their investments.
I'd like to encourage that as we even encourage people to innovate, that we think, how do we encourage the innovators to keep innovating and to join the space, etc. So it may not be money, but I'm going to work very hard as we work on the single space to look at the incentive part of that activity is to see how we can incentivize the innovation.
CARICOM's Assistant Secretary General for Trade and Economic Integration, Mr. Joseph Cox, says the single ICT space is critical in the context of the CSME.
Most importantly, from my perspective, would be the issue of reduction of transactions costs to your citizenry, whereby, for example, in most of our countries, mobile penetration is extremely high. But we therefore need to be using that same technology to treat with things like what we call conditional cash transfers, be it your pensions, any kind of governmental assistance, etc., etc. So this is where the whole world is going, and that's why it is so absolutely important to the development of this CSME. Because what is the CSME? A single market and economy. So you're looking at driving efficiencies, building synergies and optimizing your output, whether you're using vertical integration or any other type of mechanism to increase your overall effective output from your countries and the region.
Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell is lead head with responsibility for science and technology, including ICT, in the CARICOM Quasi-Cabinet. The New Life organization, NULO, has launched a solar energy and irrigation system project. This project is being funded by UNDP Global Environment Facility Small Grant Program at an estimated cost of over 500,000 EC dollars, with support from GrenLec and L6 Inc. The Solar and Irrigation System Program, which commenced on October 2nd, 2017, will assist with bringing down the electricity costs incurred by the institution, which relies heavily on the use of electrical equipment for its skills training course. Executive Director of NULO, Sister Margaret Yamoa, says that while NULO is developing, it is also costing the institution.
For 34 years, NULO has relied on both internal, within Grenada, and external funders to be able to carry our programs going. Every year, the cost of our electricity increases because every year we tend to buy new tools, equipment, improve facilities. And progress comes at a very expensive cost. The more you tend to develop, the more you tend to spend. And so now we have a whole new facility whose energy consumption without the solar would have equaled that of what was already existing. Now, there was no way NULO would have been able to do that without this solar project. And so we are very happy that it is going to help us, if not bring any profit for us, at least cut our energy consumption to zero.
National Coordinator of UNDP Small Grant Program, Simone Lewis, says that the program is open to other groups and entities.
Let me, at this juncture, congratulate NULO for being one of the groups that was able to effectively and efficiently implement and manage the resources for the project. Now, they have implemented the project in under 1 year. So they have received all of their funding, and most of the groups in Grenada have not been able to complete their project within the duration. So I'd like us to give them a round of applause for accomplishing this milestone, because it augurs well for groups in Grenada.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
The house was shaking. Then started the story here, babe. Crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office. A message from the National Disaster Management Agency and SEDERA.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the National Report for Wednesday, September 12, 2018. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court will commence the new law year 2018-2019 on Tuesday, September 18th, with a ceremonial opening in the form of a special sitting of the court in St. Kitts and Nevis. The year will commence with a church service in each member state and territory, followed by the procession to the High Court, where the formal sitting will be held. In Grenada, the church service will be held at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception in St. George's, commencing at 8:30 a.m., followed by the inspection of the Guard of Honor and the formal court sitting, which will be held at High Court Number 1. The Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Dame Janice M. Piera, DBE, will deliver the opening address at 10 a.m. from St. Kitts and Nevis, where the Court of Appeal is scheduled for its first sitting in the new law year. The theme for the opening of the law year's address is Challenges, Opportunities and Resilience, the ECSC paving the way to a modern and efficient judiciary for the Eastern Caribbean. And that brings us to the end of the National Report for today, Wednesday, September 12, 2018. To recap the top story, CARICOM officials say regulating the single ICT space is crucial. I am Abigail McIntyre. Thank you for joining us.
If you wanna check the grand like balance on your phone, or report a faulty line near your home, if there is an emergency, take out your phone. These are 3 numbers that you should know. 237. Call me anytime, I'm always on the line. 237. Just call me anytime, I'm always on the line. 237.
Co-op Bank cares about your financial future, which is why we want you to join us on Thursday, September 20th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Grenada Trade Center for our first National Growth and Investment Dialogue. Come and be enlightened on seizing opportunities to grow your wealth.
Can I have a chicken lunch, please? Large.
Real nice today.
I don't want that.
But you just asked for a chicken lunch.
I don't have problem with the lunch. Afraid the container.
What is the problem with it?
These styrofoam containers, they don't good for the environment. They shorten with life.
What foolishness you telling me? So what you want me to use?
Put my food in this. Where you get that? At the food fair, where you could get all biodegradable food boxes and disposable food supplies like cups, plates, anything you could think about. Name it, it's there. And they don't harm the environment. Food fair, taking the lead in cleaning up and protecting the environment. Hey, like you take me advice, you get in your biodegradable food supplies.
Well, girl, I supporting who supporting the environment. That is why I shop in at food fair.
Food fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets. Products distributed by Hubbard's agency, Kirani James Boulevard.
Grenada Market has now introduced prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zeberpick, Nutmeg, Wabande and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, it's just about time to say good morning to Mr. Alan Baczynski. I don't have a clue where the heck he is today, but let's say good morning anyway, Alan. Hello, Mr. Baczynski. How art thou?
Good morning. I'm very well. You can hear me fine? Give me a thumbs up.
There you go, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. I also want to say that I'm very relieved that we're not having any technical difficulties so far, even though I can't hear you. You can't. No, hey, wait a minute. I'm hearing you. That's an improvement.
And I'm hearing you. That's another improvement.
Guess what? We're on the move.
Since March 13th, right?
No, as I said, I'm really feeling very relieved because you remember the last time we spoke, I was concerned about governance issues, transparency, accountability, and such like, the perception of possible conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
So yesterday's press conference has put all of that to rest, because I'm just sorry they didn't have it before, because I would really have liked to have known prior to me speaking with you last week, Thursday, that the independent external auditor of the Grenada Marketing and National Importing Board, had recused himself from any possible inquiry, as we say up here in the States where I am currently. Now, that means that all that I said last week wasn't necessary, because we found out that, in fact, a determination was made that there would be a perception of conflict of interest or an actual conflict of interest, and the individual recused himself from any possible inquiry. Actually, I prefer the word inquiry. Now, the issue here is, though, that if all of this was taking place, why wasn't it made public before? I mean, speculation was rife. I seem to recall a headline on a newspaper regarding attempt to cover up. But so now that we have been advised that, in fact, actions had been taken, I think, as early as the 2nd of August, prior to Carnival, maybe certain portrayals on Juve Morning might not have been necessary. Anyway, be that as it may, what struck my attention was this Caribbean Chinese conference on corruption. And it seems that the Chinese are on a charm offensive, because on the 5th of September, President Xi Jinping hosted a summit of nearly all African countries in Beijing to discuss this issue, this perception. Here we go again with the perception that the Chinese government and Chinese government and companies have been engaged in corrupt practices all over Africa. But a Chinese government spokesman made it clear that it is not that the Chinese companies and government are corrupt. It is that the African leaders are corrupt. And so they're merely trying to do business, and they're not engaged in any vanity projects at all. What they're trying to do is have improvements in the quality of life and in infrastructure. The fact that these infrastructural projects all seem to be undertaken with Chinese raw materials and Chinese labor is merely a function of the competitiveness of Chinese companies and the Chinese government. And the issue of debt is not really to be anything to be concerned about, because the debt is provided at very competitive rates. Notice there was no particular mention of grants. They're just talking about debt at competitive rates. I may have mentioned last Thursday that one of the major projects was a railroad from Kenya to Tanzania, I believe, and with the object of going further. And last year, in a full year of operations, that railroad lost over $100 million US. Now, you can have all the infrastructure you want, but if it can't operate at a profit, then it means that your debt will continue to accumulate. And that raises the issue as to why is it that we need to have 3 jetways at the airport at Point Saline? No, that is no doubt a strategic decision. We need 3 jetways when Barbados has none. Now, just to be clear, I Googled what a jetway is. So it's a mobile telescopic, a mobile telescopic bridge between an aircraft and the terminal building.
Yeah.
So a jetway will not be able to service the SVG aircraft to carry a crew. It will not be able to service your Liat flights, which constitute most of our daily flights.
Yeah.
And it will be able to service the larger planes that, apart from American Airlines, do not provide a daily service into Point Saline. So 1 is questionable, but 3 is laughable, if you can find something to laugh about. Now, I started off with the railroad in Kenya because, having obtained it with Chinese construction and Chinese debt, it is losing money. It cannot help but lose money because it is surplus to their needs. So we are getting 3 jetways. So from inception, you have to ask, why?
Why not?
And if you tell me we're planning for the future, I would suggest that perhaps what we ought to be doing is putting a spaceport instead, so that we can rocket all of our important people to the moon, where, frankly, some of them ought to be. So let's go back to the jetway. And we come now to the Chinese involvement in all of this. Well, in fact, we don't know. What we've heard is that there's going to be expansion of the airport. We will have some additional taxiways, then the 3 jetways, and it all seems rather confusing, because my response always is not just how are we going to pay for it in the initial stages, but how are we going to generate the surplus funds to maintain and operate? Now, I know we have 2 stadia. I don't know where the funds are to maintain and operate. I know we have had the second invitational, but there was a lot of talk about people not having been paid. So you can't investigate that because it's a private operation. You can investigate the marketing board because it isn't a private operation. So it seems that for every step we make, we have to be looking back and sniffing to see what in fact we stepped in.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Baczynski. You know, I have a very great admiration for the homework that you do. You hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. And I cannot help but marvel at the thought that now you are into retirement with a little more time on your hands. I don't know what the hell to expect, Mr. Baczynski, but I'll tell you something, not only I, but the people of Grenada do appreciate it. You just raised a lot of issues there, which, you know, sometimes I think people hear these things and they sweep them under the carpet, and then you never hear anything more about it. Oh, by the way, one of the things you mentioned at the airport with the jetways and the taxiways, wasn't there talk also about building another runway?
Wow,
I
think there may have been some confusion between taxiway and runway.
Oh, okay, all right.
Unless it is that the Chinese are going to reclaim Lansapine and join it to Point Saline.
You know, something.
On the other hand, and this is entirely speculation. Maybe as long as they're reclaiming land, they might as well join from Fort Judy, come all the way down, and then we could have a new deep water port.
Absolutely. Why not? And they heard it right here from Mr. Baczynski. Amy?
Of course, you realize we'll need the deep water port in order to handle all the oil.
Yeah. And of course, you also know that there's a lot of talk about turning St. George into a sort of climate change model. A model.
I have no idea what that means. Do you?
Well, you know, time we're going to figure it out, hopefully, sooner or later. Hopefully, sooner or later. You know, you hear these things, they come out in bursts, and then nobody ever takes the time to really explain to the people what they're talking about and so on and so forth. But I'm glad that we have you out there as a watchdog, sir, and I look forward to seeing you as soon as you return to Grenada.
Remember, Watchdog was the other one, not me.
Yeah. But I couldn't think of another name to describe you, sir.
Let us say an interested observer of current events.
Thank you very much, Mr. B. Appreciate it. Have a good day, Alan.
Having said that,
yeah,
perhaps you and your colleagues might want to start asking questions now about the details of the agreement with Global Petroleum Group.
Did you hear that piece we ran yesterday?
It was very illuminating.
Very illuminating. And, you know, for people who may have missed it yesterday, I suggest that you go to the you are on the Grenada Broadcast website, but right below the monitor, the live monitor, we do have some archives. Check out yesterday's edition of Good Day Grenada, and you'll find out what Alan and I are talking about. Very, very much of an eye-opener, Alan. And we're going to... You know, it's one thing to try and ask the questions, Alan, but are you going to get the answers? You know, certain people are excluded from being given answers by the current administration.
There's no reason why you can't keep asking, because the way things are, there will be leaks.
Yeah.
More and more there will be leaks.
What is
because the way things are, when everybody is seated at the table, sometimes they don't think they're getting their fair share of crumbs.
Yeah.
And then they find themselves at a crossroads.
Yeah. And the scriptures, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere mention that nothing remains hidden, everything comes out eventually. Or words
particularly in your travels on the road to Damascus.
On that note, Mr. Bashinsky, please go whatever it is you're doing on your sojourn, and we'll see you again
next week.
Next week, unless I find some way to get you involved in a little more mischief, you know. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye now.
Thanks a lot, Amy.
When a hurricane watch or warning is in effect, act quickly. Listen to the media for official information. Set your refrigerator to the coldest temperature to help food last longer. Move electrical devices from areas where they may get wet. During a hurricane, stay indoors. Be mindful that you may lose power and keep listening to the media. Unplug all electrical devices and take off your main switch. This will reduce the potential for damage or fire. Avoid opening refrigerators and freezers, as food will thaw more quickly. Assume all wires are energized and stay away from them. In the event of island-wide damage, GrenLec will restore power to critical facilities first. These include hospitals, police, fire departments, and water supply pumps. For more information, please visit us at grenlec.com.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Grenada Market has now introduced the prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zeberpick, Nutmeg, Wabande, and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
You know, folks, I have to tell you that last Monday, not this week, but Monday of last week, when we started doing this program, I did mention to you that we were going to start, you know, for the first couple of weeks, we were only going to do a half hour and sort of ramp it up as time went on. Well, I'll tell you something. Today happens to be just Wednesday of the second week, so a week and a half through. And look, we are already 46 minutes into the program. So it looks like without any delay whatsoever, we will be up to an hour, if not by the end of this week. Then certainly, today's not Wednesday, today's Thursday. Certainly by next week, we'll probably be up to an hour. So let me say thank you very much, those of you who've been joining us. Let's see here. Chester, Nesta, and O'Keefe. Somebody here is saying that Chester Simon says, I think Mr. B should come to Switzerland to make some observations. O'Keefe Barnes says, so what about Jamaica? Isaac will get back stronger. O'Keefe, you're obviously not too optimistic that this thing is fizzling out. Well, I took a look at the satellite picture, and it seems that I agree with what the guys at the National Hurricane Center are saying. Looks like, you know, we're scot-free. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some showers from the outer bands and so on, but no big deal. Nesta is also out there in Switzerland, and I want to say thank you very much, folks, for joining us this morning. May the good Lord bless and keep you. Trust in Him with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in everything you do, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. God bless you. By His grace, see you tomorrow morning.